You ever hear one of those stories people tell every Halloween? You know, the kind everyone swears really happened, just not in their town? Well, this one did. At least that's what people here still say. It started with 3 kids, Jake, Connor, and Eli. They were 16, bored, and convinced they were too old for trick-or-treating. So they came up with a better idea. They were gonna prank old Mr. Darnell, the quiet guy who lived 2 streets down. The one who never decorated for Halloween, never opened the door for candy. The one with the rusted fence and the house that always smelled like old metal and rain. Mr. Darnell had a reputation. Some kids said he used to be a mortician. Others swore he kept stray cats in jars in his basement. But no one had ever proven anything. So naturally, the boys decided that's where they'd go. Not to ring his doorbell, not to throw eggs, but to actually break into his basement and record it for TikTok, because that's how teenage logic works, right? They waited until after midnight, Halloween night. The moon was pale, almost silver, and the streets were dead silent. Jake had a flashlight. Connor had his phone out, already filming. Eli? He was the one who picked the lock on the cellar door. At first, they laughed. The basement was colder than they expected, damp, and smelled like rust and mildew. The light from Jake's flashlight caught dust swirling in the air. "Look at this place," Connor whispered. "Dude hasn't cleaned since the 70s. There were old boxes, tools, shelves stacked with jars of nails. Nothing too crazy. Until Eli pointed to the far corner. "Hey, what's that?" Against the wall was a wooden rack, like something used for hanging coats. Only instead of jackets, there were costumes. Dozens of them, child-sized. Pumpkins, witches, skeletons. Some were faded, almost white. Some stiff, brittle like old paper. A few were torn, and some had dark stains that never fully dried. Jake muttered, "No way, that's not real blood, right?" Connor zoomed in with his phone light. "Looks old, maybe paint?" But his voice was shaking. Eli reached out and touched one of the costumes. The fabric crumbled slightly under his fingers, and something small fell from the sleeve. It hit the floor with a soft clink. A bracelet. Plastic orange beads with a name spelled out in faded letters. L-I-Z-Z. Jake froze. "Wait, Dude, wasn't there a girl named Lizzie who went missing like forever ago?" Connor nodded slowly. "My mom told me about her. She disappeared on Halloween night." The air seemed to thicken. Every shadow stretched longer. And then, footsteps from upstairs. They killed the lights instantly. Only the dim glow of Connor's phone remained. The old wooden floor above them creaked. Slow, heavy steps. Jake whispered, He's home. What do we do?" Eli gestured toward the cellar door. "Go quiet. Go now." But the footsteps moved toward the door, then stopped, and the sound of metal, a latch, locking from the outside. They were trapped. Connor tried whispering, "Maybe there's another exit." But then, the sound started again. Not footsteps. Humming. Soft. Low. A man's voice, humming the tune of Trick or Treat. Panic set in. Eli grabbed a rusted crowbar from the shelf and started prying at the cellar window. Jake held the light, hands shaking so bad the beam danced all over the walls. That's when they noticed something else. A table in the corner, covered with old newspaper, and underneath it, shapes, small shapes. Connor lifted one corner just enough to see a child's mask, and beneath it, a skull, no bigger than a grapefruit. He dropped the phone. The humming stopped. Then the footsteps came back, faster now. They didn't wait. Eli smashed the window, shards flying everywhere. The boys clawed their way out into the freezing night air, scraping their arms raw. And when they turned back, the light in the basement flicked on, for the first time in years. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the glow, old, thin, and still humming. By the time the police arrived, the basement was empty. No costumes, no bones, not even a trace of blood. The boys told everything, the recording, the rack, the bracelet. But when they tried to show the video, it was gone, corrupted, just static and distorted audio, except for one whisper near the end. Too late. They're all mine. Mr. Darnell was never seen again. His house was abandoned, then demolished a few years later. But every Halloween night, around midnight, people say they hear humming from the empty lot. And sometimes, if the wind is still, you can smell rust and candy and something else, something rotten. They thought it was a prank, but the dead don't forget Halloween.